a couple of years ago, there was a casino that got breached because of their smart aquarium thermometer, and that was a doorway.
Everyone's always concerned about the Internet of Things, and let's be honest, it's growing bigger and bigger every day. It can give us a lot of conveniences, but it's also a little concerning when you start to realize that these are a bunch of little computers that are built for specific purposes that are put throughout your house and throughout infrastructure with such unique builds that sometimes they are just open for exploitation. Well, our guest today is no stranger to the IoT world, and we're really lucky to have her. She's been working in IoT for a very long time. Specifically, I'd like to introduce Gloria Globman. She's the Chief Technology Officer at Acclaimed Technical Services, where she's leading technology strategy for mission-critical work supporting the U.S. intelligence community. She brings over 20 years of government experience, most recently as Senior Cyber Advisor at the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo, along with earlier leadership in private sector telecom modernization. A U.S. Navy veteran and a recipient of the Presidential Rank Award and Career Intelligence Medal. She's operated at the highest levels of cyber and national security. Gloria, welcome to Legitimate Cybersecurity. We're so happy to have you. And it's great to have a guest of your caliber here who's seen so much and been so many places. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, fantastic. So one of the things that Dustin and I have worked with a lot throughout our career, and at least for me, I think it started, I was with Raspberry Pis, where I realized these are flexible devices that can be done. You can do so many different things in a lot of different ways. And Dustin actually introduced me to the first version of them way back in 2012, where I then spent the better half of an evening lugging him across a whole city trying to find some, because I put them in magazines back then. It was like you could find them in magazine inserts. But it's been something that's become more and more mainstream. Most people think that their smart devices are harmless convenience tools, but that's hardly the case. What's the biggest thing they're missing about IoT and how it quietly expands the threat landscape in their house, at their home, and everywhere else?
Yeah, that's a really good question, a really good opener. I think people need to realize that the device itself isn't the target, that it's a doorway, and most people are leaving that door unlocked because they forget that it even exists, right? That door exists. And so when I talk to people about their smart devices, they describe them in a very simple way, like it's a toaster, it's a thermostat, right? It's a doorbell, it's a baby
Hmm.
monitor. And what I like to point out is that, yep, it's that, but it's also a computer. It's a camera, it's a microphone, and it all has internet connection. And so you've just invited all of this into your house, and maybe in some cases you've forgotten about it. And so to answer your question, I think what some people are missing is every single one of these devices are literally a front door. And if you don't put a lock on them, that's sufficient. You're inviting some issues into your house. And so a couple of things to consider about these devices is one, they're very chatty. These devices like to talk. They're talking to the manufacturer, they're talking to the cloud environment, they're talking to each other. And so you really have to lock this down if it's not necessary. And then the second thing is sometimes they don't get patched, right? So if you open up your laptop, you open up your phone, you're getting nagged all the time to do uploads, to update your device. And sometimes the vendors may be out of business. They don't exist anymore for these devices. And you've got updates that need to be made on these Internet of Things devices. And it's sitting there blinking at you on the wall and you're not paying any attention to it. Just something to consider that maybe people might be missing about these devices.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point too. Like the point of these devices is really, at least partially, is like cognitive offloading, right? Like things that we don't have to think about anymore. But you bring up a really good point where it's like you don't have to think about it until you do, but you do need to think about it, right? You need to think about it almost like a different like so you have something that, controls your thermostat or turns your lights off and on or whatever, and it makes life easier. But then you still have to think about it and, oh, when's the last time I updated that? Or when's the last time for industry folks, when's the last time I ran an audit on it? Or when's the last time I looked at, what cloud service it's calling back to, if that cloud service even still exists, or if that manufacturer has gone out of business and somebody snagged the domain and now it's just like sending my data someplace else, right? So
Exactly.
I love that. I love that it's like this is to help, make things easier, but it's going to make things harder too.
That's right. That's right. There was a couple of years ago, there was a casino that got breached because of their smart aquarium thermometer,
Yeah,
and
the
Right.
that was
MGM
Yeah.
their
casino.
that's it.
It
Yeah.
was remarkable how flat their network was too, where it could
Yeah.
just get on everything from the aquarium.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Um, I,
Yeah.
I think I like that you brought up there how chatty they are because as we talk more about how much they communicate and talk and kind of spew everything everywhere, it really brings to mind for me printers. And
Mm,
I almost wonder if printers were like kind of the harbinger here because they didn't get patched often. They would always broadcast. They were a pain to get sorted when something was messed up. I'm starting to think that maybe just these are the natural evolution of printers that are just going to make our life miserable at the end of the day when it comes to security and connectivity.
yeah.
I and I'm still not on board with a smart fish tank, but I'm sure there's fish lovers out there who are on board with it. But I agree, which then kind of makes me think of another question here. When employees use personal phones, tablets, smartwatches, or home networks for work, and you have these IoT devices on there too, presenting potentially these like vulnerabilities and potential for exploitation. Where do you see the biggest blind spot there for defenders? And I want your opinion from both angles, both
Mm,
as and we'll use a scenario of work going forward here on this one from the company that wants to secure their data and protect their data, right? But also from the individual who doesn't want to have an issue that
mhm.
is going to impact their employment. Let's put it that way. What do you see are the biggest areas that they need to keep an eye on?
Yeah. So this is another good question, and something that we deal with, and probably a lot of smaller to mid-sized companies deal with, right? Is the the personal devices when they meet work, and so I think the real risk is not the device you issued or the device that's part of the work network. It's that whole entire ecosystem, right? So what happens is we as defenders, what do? We secure the laptop. But someone walks in and they bring their phone and they attach to our Wi-Fi, and now they've just increased the landscape. And we're not managing those personal phones, or maybe they brought their laptop in because we're meeting with another company that we want to team with, and so all that to say is personal devices, right, are loaded with these wonderful apps and they're constantly pulling data. They request permissions, they're tracking your location, they're syncing to other cloud accounts. And now you've just connected that to our corporate network. And so it's extremely difficult to defend against that. If you flip it now, if you're at home, you're, work from home and you're using your own network, but you're using now our laptop here, our corporate network has segmentation, right? We're monitoring it. We have security team behind it. But at home, we don't have that. We don't have that kind of reach. And so, again, going back to what it might look like at your house, you might have an old router, an old ISP router with maybe
Mhm.
weak configuration. You've got maybe a mix of work devices. So you might have, what we've given you. You might be also using your own device. You've got a gaming system, you got a smart TV, you've got a camera, again, all these other different types of devices that are all connected on your network that we have no access to in terms of defending. And so when work moved, home, again, the threat surface moved with it. And yeah, it was tough. Security posture for us did not move with that move to the edge, if you will.
Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
think
Sorry.
it sorry. I think it's interesting because you started that, especially with mid-sized companies. And something that I've seen for a lot of mid-sized companies that seems to be a struggle is they want to be secure, right? But I feel like a lot of companies hit this middle ground where they can't just take I mean, if you're a small company, you can kind of just take the defaults, apply them, and watch those go move forward. And when you're a huge company, you have the budget to actually implement cybersecurity appropriately. But like, what do you think is the best advice for that mid-level organization that's maybe a regional company that just wants to be secure but has the budget for like a half a person and a donkey kind of thing? Like,
Yeah.
how do they move forward, securely in your perspective?
I mean, they've got to build in. It cannot be discretionary. It cannot be a tax. It has to be part of, it has to have its own budget line item. And I think the recommendation is like maybe 15 to 20% of your overall budget you need to be spending on IT and security.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. They
Yeah.
should.
I like that.
Yeah, they should
Absolutely.
do that.
Because how quickly will you lose your reputation, your branding, your money if you have, if you lose the PII or whatever sensitive information you're managing, whatever your business is, people find out and they don't want to use you anymore. They don't want to do business with you anymore. And so it's all gone. And so baking it up front.
Yeah. I think that's an important consideration, especially when I'm going to follow up on it. And this might not be a fair question, but then why don't they do that?
Yeah. Because it's not sexy. So, you mentioned
Right.
earlier,
Yeah.
right? I worked for a telecom company and, we never got any phone calls until dial tone wasn't there, right? People don't think about it. They don't want to think about it, right? But they think about it when they have to. And so we want to move away from that kind of reaction. We want to just build it in so you don't have to think about it and you don't have to, you're right, make that phone call or text message or whatever it is to your MSP or your provider, asking them what the heck happened here. Why am I getting, these phishing emails or why did I get exposed? Why did I get attacked?
Yeah,
Fix it
that's a
up front.
yeah. It's a really good yeah, that's great. I love it. I mean, like, and you're right. It's not a thing until it is, and then all of a sudden it's a thing, and then all of a sudden we've got the budget for it, right? It's always
That's
kind of
right.
an interesting conversation to have. Where'd that money come from? Why weren't we more proactive about this? But
Indeed.
in the like the spirit of proactivity, like what from your perspective, what are some of the more like I don't want to say cost effective, but highest impact things that an organization can do
Sure.
to help with that. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I would take a page out of the whole, zero trust architecture conversation we're having, the government's having as well.
Yeah.
And so, the multi-factor authentication, microsegmentation, these are some really basic things that you can do. I'm a big believer in encryption, encrypting at rest, encrypting in transit, encrypting in
Hmm.
use, right? Especially when you're talking about sensitive data. So there are some things I think that, and it doesn't cost a lot of money that I think organizations can introduce to help defend against just some real basic things. And I think even more, even more simple. I mean, beyond the whole zero trust conversation is patch, patch.
Yeah.
Right?
You want to
You
talk
know,
about things people don't find sexy?
Yeah, right.
Oh,
I
there you
mean,
go. Patch
yeah, I get
Tuesdays.
it. It's
Yeah.
boring, but now, hey, we're fine. Like with the whole mythos conversation,
Yeah.
it's here. I mean, people are using AI to go and scan your network, find your vulnerabilities, and before you know it, again, we're back at the beginning where we're making phone calls. So,
What
patch.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Frank.
what's interesting, you brought up Mythos there. What's interesting is that it doesn't even have to be as complicated as Mythos. Palo Alto put out the research paper this week, I believe, on Zealot that they made, which if you're try to name an AI more menacing, by the way.
Right.
We
Sell it.
we have this machine, we have this new AI, and it can orchestrate attacks and have multiple different AIs working for it. This is what it does, by the way. We have multiple different AIs working for this AI that are specific experts in their key areas to hack different systems. What's a good name? Let's call it Zealot. Anyway, I think it's interesting that you don't even have to have the thing that differentiated Zealot besides the orchestration aspect with Mythos, because Mythos just invented 0 days. Zealot took advantage of pre-existing exploitations. It didn't even, and vulnerabilities, it didn't even have to invent anything because, and this gets to your point with patching, right? It was able to still in record time exploit all these systems without having to invent anything new. And that's
Mhm.
just like the recognition and the automation. So I think that kind of reinforces your point there because patching, and it's like going to the dentist and taking out the trash. No one wants to do it. It's not fun, and you might break something. But it's still something that has to be pushed out. So I really like that answer. I really appreciate it. Sorry, Dustin, I interrupted you. Go
No,
ahead.
you're going right into kind of what I was going to say, which is like KEVs, known exploitable vulnerabilities, CEVs. Those things have been kind of going up exponentially since AI and automation has been. So over the past like 5 years, I think they've been like I don't know if they've been doubling every. I know we're gonna have some stickler is gonna say if I say doubling, some stickler is gonna be in the comments saying
If you
that
say
didn't
something like
double
that,
in
we'll get like
2020.
an angry email. It'll
We're
come.
gonna get an angry email. So I'll just say that it's gone up year after year, and in more ways than just like, well, we have more software, we have more security professionals out there. It's very clear that automation, AI, all of these things that I'm just going to go ahead and say it. We've been using for way longer than has been available to the public in the cybersecurity space. That has already raised the bar, or raised the amount of these vulnerabilities that we're seeing kind of come out on a yearly basis. And so, like, the Mythos thing for me is like, yeah, great. Like, somebody made marketing material for it now. Cool. Let's go ahead and still do, like, let's have mature, vulnerability management. Let's have
Hmm.
mature patching practices
Hmm.
and mitigation practices. It's not always a patch, right? Sometimes it's a configuration or something else, or an update, or whatever it might be, or end of life, just switch the device out. So, but yeah, so that level of mature, like, keeping customers, or keeping clients, or whoever it is, at that level of maturity, making sure they understand, well, no, actually, if you kind of already have a process in place, sure, you might have to do the process more often, but it's still there. That process is still there.
Hmm.
You feel like it's kind of still the same thing. Like you've already said that, IoT devices are basically tiny computers, right? So if we're talking about those, then we're talking about, if we're talking about computers, and we're also kind of applying that to IoT devices. But the other
Correct.
problem with IoT devices is that, like you mentioned, there's not always an update. So then there's,
Yes.
other, I guess, controls around there that we to really practice our defense in depth. And you mentioned zero trust as well. But
Hmm.
how do you see that kind of playing into the IoT field as far as zero trust goes, I guess?
Yeah, I talked about segmentation, microsegmentation earlier when I mentioned
Right.
zero
Yeah,
trust.
that's right.
And, some of the things that I think that people who aren't IT savvy and they may not realize is you can set up an IoT segment on your router. And
Yeah.
so put all your IoT devices on, just like you do with the guest network, like for your router. Like when people come to my home, I'm like, oh yeah, we live in the woods. So I'm like, use the guest network, to log in to my Wi-Fi because I'm not letting them on my network. I also segment all of my IoT devices on its own, subnet on my network. And that's something I think is that people need to be thinking about, going back to kind of the zero trust and the best practices is, segment all this stuff. So if someone does get into your IoT device, they're not getting onto the real network that they probably want access to.
Right. And that actually brings up another really good question too, because when we're talking about this, I like your home network example. Wh- Why do you think then organizations are, with all these vulnerabilities and considerations and these segmentations, why are organizations embracing IoT and BYOD so much? When we're talking about these risks here, they're pretty obvious. Do you think that these tech leaders, these business leaders are getting the risk trade off wrong? I mean, should they maybe take a step back and reconsider it?
I think the reason why they're embracing it is it's easy.
Mm,
So, for example, you bring on an intern or a part timer, and you have a finite, obviously, amount of laptops. You're not going to give the part timer or the intern a laptop. You're going to tell them to bring their own device. So, and it gives them immediate productivity. There's a cost savings to the company. And usually, the intern or the part timer is happy. They get to use their own device, right? 'Cause it's got all the stuff on it that they like, right? And so again, it's easy. And I think it's not the question whether, organizations should embrace it. I think the question is know walking in what you're embracing when it comes to BYOD,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So again, make sure you understand what's coming with that BYOD that you enjoy because it's cheaper, it's immediate, get them to work immediately and cost savings and the people are happy. Understand again the risks that brings as you're embracing this BYOD policy.
So, from that perspective, and I think I know the answer, but I just would
Yeah,
like your take on it.
sure.
Why do you think virtual desktop interfaces, VDIs, right, are not as uh, aren't seen as often then? Because we're at the part with connectivity where everyone can connect pretty quickly, and lag is still a real thing. But I can just spin up a bunch of VDIs and say, "Here you go, log in, do work, then go away now." Like, why do you think they haven't seen as much adoption? Because a lot of my clients, they're not interested, right?
Yeah,
What,
yeah.
what's your perspective there?
I think, well, you hit the first one. At least, when I've used it, there has been a lag. But then there's this. There is I don't have access to this software package. I don't have access to this tool. And then it's the constant going back and forth with the IT. And then there's I can't load that, or you can't have that. And it becomes, forget it. I don't want to use this environment because I can't do what I want to do when I want to do it, because I'm being told what I have to use within this environment. That's kind of, the human nature side of what I've seen with BDI. I don't know if that resonates at all.
No, it's either that or then they try to print.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
especially with the VDIs. I've not seen
Yeah.
anyone happy when they've logged into a VDI
Yeah.
and then tried to print something at their desk. That's just my experience. But I still, there's, I don't know why I get so attached to it, but I just wish they just worked. Right. I just
Yeah.
wish it was easy for everyone, because I've seen certain offices where they do have it in place and it is
Mhm.
run well and it can provide a consistent experience for everyone. And you're right. It's having to ask for, oh, but I also want this and I want this. And I feel like we're kind of at the halfway point with how a lot of BYOD is put in place. And it reminds me, Dustin, what was the name of that? They were bought by Razer. There used to be a phone that was completely cloud based. The Robin. Do you remember that? It's got to be
I
like
do.
10 years. It was a cell phone and
Huh.
everything was cloud based and everything was stored in the cloud. And their whole idea was like, well, you're going to use it to connect to the internet anyway. You might as well have it here. And they ran into that problem. It's like, well, when there's no connectivity, it's actually a pretty terrible cell phone. But they came up with this great idea, and it was wonderful for 2 years until they realized they couldn't do much with it anymore. And Razer ended up buying them. And I don't even think there is a Razer phone. Last I checked.
I used to
I don't
love the
think there is.
razor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah. Dustin used to have a Razer computer and was super thin and could do all these different cartwheels and stuff. And then there was not enough cooling in it, if I remember correctly.
Mm.
It just
Yeah,
it
I mean,
kept taking
I
a knee,
kind of
right?
yeah, I installed Linux on it, so the cooling capabilities for the kernel were just, like, not there. I
So you
think they
tried the ancient magic on
from
it.
what I've
Got it.
seen. Yeah, I did. I put the ancient magic on. I totally wiped Windows off of it and ended up bricking it, so but anyway. Yeah, that's an interesting thought, though, like, I do like the idea of kind of cloud-based everything. That it is almost like it's almost zero trust, like in a box, right? If you move everybody over to like an AVD or AVD, I'm speaking Microsoft talk now, but AVD, VDI, whatever
Yeah.
it is, like just a virtual desktop environment.
Yeah.
But then like it also seems like then you have the issue of where some folks think, oh, okay, well I don't have any risk now because that's all Microsoft's risk because all of my stuff is
Mhm.
hosted there,
Oh,
right?
if I
There's like
hear
that
that one
risk
more time.
transference. I don't know. I think we can coin a phrase on this show and say like risk transference, dysmorphia or something like that. There's something going on in your brain when you're
Mhm.
like, okay, it's not my problem anymore. I mean, is that
Yeah.
something that, Gloria, from your side, do you see because the IoT, like a lot of these IoT devices are obviously they're going to be cloud based or there's going to be some kind of cloud component to them. Is there that kind of mentality that kind of goes along with that where it's like, well, it's the manufacturer, they're going to do the updates and I got this set on auto update, so it's fine. Like the data is stored in their cloud, so it's really their problem. Is that something you kind of see a lot of in that space as well?
Completely.
Yeah.
And I forget what it was, what the actor was, but it was maybe last year, a year and a half ago, where the FBI shut down a lot of botnets that were being used by this nation state actor, right? Because these routers were old and the devices were old, and it was just being destroyed by the adversary in terms of
Mm.
actively using it. And so they do forget.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that brings up a really good discussion point. I'd really love to know your thoughts on it, because now they've pushed through that ban, right? That coming up soon, you're not going to be able to buy a router unless it was
It's,
what is I think manufactured in the U.S. and
huh?
and designed here.
Goodbye TP Link. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I I I'm I've never seen any TP-Link exploitations personally, but I'm not saying that they're not there. It's been very interesting the last few years where everyone's like, no, TP-Link's bad. I'm like, prove it. They're like, well, it could be exploited like this. I'm like, has it been exploited like
Right.
this? Well, you better look out. I'm like, ah. And so what are your thoughts there? Like, do you think this is overkill? Do you think this is the appropriate response? I mean, if I'm a threat actor, if I'm a nation state threat actor, then I build an LLC in the US and then I start, building routers that way. Like, what level of protection is this really providing the American people from your perspective?
Think it's okay. One is there aren't a lot of other basic routers for people to go out
Yeah,
and buy, right?
I don't know. I can't think of any that are made in the US that I can go buy right now.
Right. Right. So if you're going to say we can't, then you better have a stockpile of other opportunities for us to use. So all that say is, again, going back to AI, because of AI, it doesn't. I don't think it matters if you have poor tradecraft when it comes to managing your routers and IoT devices. You have poor tradecraft, and you're going to be vulnerable to somebody using AI or someone who has good, TTPs and knows how to hack and get into it. So I don't think it matters. I really don't.
So then why do you think it was passed? Like, where's the benefit if it's not like that? Because that's what I'm trying to see the angle here, right? Because from a security perspective, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So who's winning here? Like, this has got to be beneficial for someone. And I don't even know many US based, like, I don't know big US router lobby. Like, I don't even think there isn't one, right? Like, why is this happening?
Yeah, that's a good question. So maybe we go to Polymarket and figure out who's betting on this because I have no idea. I have no idea.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. I like, you know what? We should check. There was it was in the news that all those bets before Venezuela was,
Huh?
yeah,
Uh-huh.
was one of the operators. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh
Yeah.
man, that guy's got to go to jail. Like, I would have gone with our jobs previously because we're all
Yeah.
previous intelligence workers. That's the thing that sends you to jail.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
quick. The financial disclosure forms alone were enough to make me afraid. Just like, I don't know, I'm bad at taxes. That's why I pay a man. Everyone just, here, you read my monies. I'm not doing
Mhm.
anything. That time of year stressed me out. Okay, well, this is great. I've got one more question. Unless Dustin, you have additional questions. I've got one to put a bow on it because I'm really interested in your take on this because we have a lot of different listeners, and I can never predict who listens to or watches this show. It's been everything from cybersecurity professionals like yourself and Eric to people who found our show and then send us very interesting mail about, the fillings in their teeth. So it's all over the place. But for the average person watching, who has, their personal laptop, but then their work laptop, and then the IoT at the house, but then the IoT at work, and some of which they know about and some of which they don't. What can they do? I mean, you talked about segmenting and VLANing and so forth, but let's be honest. A lot of people don't know what LAN is, let alone V for VLAN. What can the average person do to try and operate a bit more securely?
Yeah. So I'd actually, I would say this for the average person. I'm going to use AI as the example because things are getting a lot easier to learn and understand what's happening in your network. So I'll start with the home network. And if you have questions, use AI, ask it to show you the steps to get into your router and figure out number one, if you have any updates that need to be made to the router, right? Number two, setting up. I'm big on the segmentation. Set up segmentations for your devices so that you have the main section in your IoT and your guest network, right? Um, I would make sure that for those devices that you can't update, maybe the manufacturer's out of business, maybe they just haven't done any updates. Maybe it's time to retire them. Maybe they're old, right? Maybe it's time to get them out of your environment. And then I'll hit on the passwords piece, right? Passwords are very important. And I was going to use a company, but it seems like they're getting hacked right now. But use a password manager, a good password manager, right?
Mhm.
For what you've got going on.
All the different
Yeah, go
password
ahead, Greg.
managers are targets all the time, and that's one of the struggles I have with my clients, where they're like, "Well," the LastPass one's an example from 2022, where they're like, "Well, this is a big problem." I'm like, "It will be when Quantum's available,
Ah,
yes." Like,
mm-hmm.
and trying to explain that to clients, where it's like, "Yes, I understand LastPass was compromised, and they did get a very encrypted database." Then hypothetically, I guess they could try to brute force individuals within it, but they don't know who those individuals are. They can't find it. They're all encrypted. This is a quantum problem. And when quantum's here, we're all in trouble. So yeah, I agree. I do like password managers.
I only had one other point I would just mention is going back to multi-factor authentication is if you have devices or websites that have MFA as an option, turn it on.
These are all great examples. Although I am surprised you didn't say just become Amish, because that will keep you
Right.
secure,
No
right?
electricity, nothing, nothing.
You say that. Could the Amish be hacked? I bet they could. There's a way. I see. I mean, at the Amish market, that's your first in eager and like way in. And then listen, someone's now going to take this as a challenge. Don't hack the Amish.
Do
Please
not.
don't.
Please
Yeah.
don't.
They're simple
Yeah.
folk. Please. Anyway, well, thank you so much, Gloria. It's been a pleasure to have you. This has been a great conversation. If anyone's interested, they can reach out to us or comment in the comments below. We'll keep an eye on and pass everything to Gloria. Otherwise, oh wait, I've always got one more question, and then Dustin sees us out. If you had, and this doesn't have to be cyber related, something I just like to ask all of our guests, one piece of life advice for anyone who's asking, what would it be?
Ooh, life advice. Ah,
You have a great
Just go
career.
for
You've
it.
seen so much.
Yeah.
I'm
Just-
very curious.
just go for it. Don't worry about what other people are thinking. Just go for it.
That's great advice. Awesome.
That is
Gloria,
great
thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And
Likewise.
until next time, everyone, Dustin, take us out.
Keep on cybering.
Keep on cybering. Thank you, everyone.